Trade deadline just passed. It was an eventful trade deadline. A lot of moves. We seen Goran Dragic go to the Heat. The Thunder bolster up their roster. It was a record 37 players traded during the deadline. It really shook up the league, gave a lot of fans something to look forward to, whether their team is in contention or not. And all that emotional high that we have from the trade deadline, we have been brought back down to earth, finding out Derrick Rose has another meniscus tear, and Chris Bosh will be out for the season after he was found out to have blood clots in his lungs, which is very serious. Both serious injuries to D. Rose and Chris Bosh. And it's very sad, especially for D. Rose. This is his third knee injury in the past 3 seasons. And now it's really a question to ask. Are we looking at Brandon Roy 2.0, Grant Hill, or Penny Hardaway? Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Blog. Back again, this time on a more somber note to discuss the NBA. Following the news that we have learned Derrick Rose has suffered another meniscus tear, which is the same injury he suffered in 2013 on that same exact right knee. And at this point, I don't know how you can't feel sorry for Derrick Rose. He loves the game of basketball. He said he will die before he quits on the court. So the people saying that he should retire, just stop it. Matter of fact, I'm going to read you 2 different quotes from Derrick Rose. Quote, "I could get hurt 10 more times. I'm never going to stop." Quote, "That's my life. That's what you don't understand. I will die on that court. Like, die. I'm going all in for it." This is a man who loves the game of basketball, and that is evident in the hard work that he has put in all of his rehabs to get back on the court. And it's just sad to know that he has not played a full season since his MVP season. And in that season, the 2010-11 season, Derrick Rose was great. That year he won the MVP. He averaged 25 points, 7.7 assists, 4.1 rebounds, and shot 44% from the field. And not to mention, he played in 81 of the 82 regular season games that year. So health was not a concern. And as much as I feel bad for D. Rose, if I'm the Chicago Bulls, I'm starting to plan life without D. Rose or life with D. Rose in a limited role. Because we don't know if D. Rose is going to come back the same Derrick Rose we know. He has already been in decline since his MVP season. And like I said, he's only played in 95 games since 2010-2011 season. And that's only a little bit more than 31 games on average per season. And at this point, I think it is fair to question if we will ever see the same dominant Derrick Rose again. We've seen what's happened to Brandon Roy, Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill. These injuries, once they hit you and they keep coming one after another, usually a player's career takes a downward spiral. And I'm not hoping this on D. Rose at all, but I think it's fair to question 95 games the last 3 seasons. That's not a lot at all. And a team like Chicago, who had so much promise this season, it's sad to see their season go in the tank like this with Derrick Rose going out to injury. Now, it's not certain that he will be out for the season just yet. It is possible that the doctors go in and clip the meniscus instead of repairing it, and that would have Derrick Rose out 4 to 6 weeks. But if you think back on how Derrick Rose has handled these injuries before, it's hard to believe that he won't be out for the season, and rightfully so. Even if he gets the meniscus clipped, I wouldn't blame him for sitting out the season. Not only do these injuries have a physical effect, they also have a mental effect where you don't trust your knees anymore. And now Derrick Rose has to get over that mental hump again for a 3rd time. A 3rd time in the past 3 seasons. This is traumatic to an NBA player's career and to his psyche. I don't know if he will ever be the same player. Over these past 3 seasons, he has turned into much more of a jump shooter in the limited games that we have seen him so far. And he's not been as effective as he was when he used to be the kamikaze type of player going to the rim without any regard for his health. And he was such a joy to watch. He still is. And this is just sad. I hope he is able to recover to what he was, but That's not very likely. He's already turning into a jump shooter. And it's sad for the Bulls because the Eastern Conference was wide open and is wide open this season. And they had just as much of a chance as any other team to come out of the East. And these injuries this season in the NBA have been a huge hit on the league. I'm just going to name off the players so far that have suffered severe injuries. Jabari Parker, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Julius Randle, Kobe, Derrick Rose, and if you want to throw in Paul George, who also suffered his broken leg during the offseason. So this NBA season has been tainted by injuries. There's a lot of good players out right now, and it just sucks for the league. And now the Eastern Conference is the Cavaliers to lose. Even if Derrick Rose is able to come back, I think the mental trauma that he will have from suffering another injury to his meniscus, I think he will not be able to play at a Derrick Rose-esque level, what we know him to be, and that will hold the Bulls back. I think they'll still be formidable. Even if he's out, they'll beat their first-round opponent, push their second-round opponent to the brink, but it's hard to believe that they'll beat the Atlanta Hawks or Cleveland Cavaliers now in a 7-game series. And I just can't buy into the Hawks beating this Cavaliers team. They just added Kendrick Perkins, and this Cavaliers team's looking serious, winners of their last 17 of 19. This Cavs team is for real. This injury for Derrick Rose just opens up the East for them, makes the road a whole lot easier. And it just sucks because this was Derrick Rose's best chance to make it to the NBA Finals. There was no Miami Heat in the way. Although the Cavs look to be great now, there was a point where they didn't look so good. And even as good as they look now, I still think the Bulls would have had a chance to upset the Cavaliers in a 7-game series with the healthy D Rose. But as far as my opinion on Derrick Rose, I think he should get his meniscus repaired, sit out the rest of the season. Hopefully he is able to rehab and get back on the court. I know he will, but hopefully he is the same Derrick Rose that we know him to be. He'll still be a dominant force, average around 20 points per game, and be the player that the Chicago Bulls can build around, because that's what he was destined to be in the league. And I just hope injuries won't rob him of that. Since injuries are the topic, I can't finish this podcast without speaking on the Miami Heat and Chris Bosh and the range of emotions they had to go through the day of the trade deadline. After finding out they traded for Goran Dragic, less than an hour later, they find out Chris Bosh most likely will be done for the season. And that was confirmed the next day. But it wasn't because of a typical sports injury, which are all bad. Any injury is bad. But the doctors found that Chris Bosh had blood clots in his lungs. Blood clots in his lungs. That's as serious as it gets. And according to reports, if it wasn't for his wife who encouraged him to go to the doctor after Chris Bosh had side and back pains that would not subside, Chris Bosh could possibly be dead from this. Blood clots are as serious as it gets. I'm no doctor, so I'm not going to get into all of that. But all I know is this is more than basketball. This is this man's life. He has a family. And Chris Bosh has taken a lot of slander over the years. Let's not forget when Skip Bayless used to call him Bosh Spice. It's funny now we learn Chris Bosh has played with blood clots. Well, I don't know for how long. I'm not a doctor. I won't act like I know. But I know that he possibly could have died from this, and that this is something above basketball. He's been a stand-up man, a stand-up basketball player, a top 10 power forward, probably top 5 in the league right now. Him and Goran Dragic, if they would have been able to play together, that would have been great to watch. Goran Dragic has never been a starter with a power forward of Chris Bosh's caliber. And if I'm not mistaken, Chris Bosh has never had a point guard of Goran Dragic's caliber either. I think they would have brought the best out of each other. Pick and roll, pick and pop. They would have worked that perfectly. They're both pick and roll players, so it's unfortunate from that aspect. I think a healthy Dragic, Wade, and Bosh would have been a tough out for any team in the Eastern Conference, including the Hawks and Cavaliers. And like I said in a prior podcast, when you look at that starting 5, it's probably a top 3 starting 5 in all of the NBA, and at the least the second best in the Eastern Conference behind the Cavaliers. So from a basketball standpoint, it sucks, but basketball doesn't matter to me in this case. I'm just happy the doctors were able to discover this when they did and it won't have any long-term effects on Bosh, and that he'll be able to play in the NBA again. And we'll just have to wait next season to see how good Wade, Bosh, and Dragic will ultimately be together.